All right, welcome everybody. I hope you are doing well today. Um, I want this to be an engaging experience. So we do have a chat box that you can chat in. Let's make this a conversation. We are live. If you have questions, if you want to give shout outs, if you want to let us know what kind of beer or whiskey or alcohol you're drinking right now, we'd love to hear it. But we're going to get into this. And if you have questions, please let me know through the chat box. But we are talking today about trends in the distillery and brewery visitor experience. And it is an exciting time. We are hopefully coming out of the pandemic and things are changing. So we're going to talk about how brands can succeed into 2022. All right, first of all, who am I? I am the co-founder and chief operating officer of AnyRoad. We'll talk about AnyRoad in a second. We are an experience relationship management platform. I was also previously the founder of Drink Me magazine and author of the book Drink More Whiskey. So I know a thing or two about alcohol. Briefly, my experience, I was in the alcohol industry for many years, was in and out of brand experiences. So in and out of visitor centers, tastings, tours. I was actually out in Lefroy cutting peat in the field at their brand home. Amazing experience, fell in love with the brand and realized that they didn't know who I was, that they didn't know how to actually optimize that experience, which is why I founded AnyRoad. And we'll talk about that in a second. What is AnyRoad? So AnyRoad is built for breweries and distilleries. Briefly, it's simple and powerful booking and ticketing solution with the most valuable data platform to grow the brand. So we work with brands like Johnnie Walker over in Edinburgh. We work with Sierra Nevada. We work with Bullet Bourbon, Four Roses, Heaven Hill, you name it. We work with over 200 brand homes, distilleries, and breweries that are using us on both of those solutions, 15 million plus annual visitors. And then briefly, we've got these 3 product suites. If you want to learn more about us, please message me or chat in on our website. But briefly, Experience Manager, this is the easiest, best ticketing booking solution for breweries and distilleries. We've got Atlas, which is our insights and intelligence platform. And then we have our third pillar data manager, which is for connecting to other systems, for example, POS systems or other CRMs, et cetera. All right. What is a brand home? So a brand home is a venue that connects brands and consumers to build advocacy, foster community, and grow revenue. So this can be breweries, it can be distilleries, it can be tasting rooms. If you look at Johnnie Walker, Princess Street in Edinburgh, they are not making any whiskey there. It is a brand home. It's a home place that is used as an amazing marketing tool. So whether you call it that or not, we're going to reference it as a brand home today. It's a huge opportunity, large and small. So if you are a brand and you are thinking about offering tours or tastings or building a visitor center or a brand home, we are seeing in the trends massive investments into brand homes everywhere in the world. As we're shifting into an experience economy, consumers want to spend more time, money, and energy on experiences. And this is a great way to get them to drive loyalty with the brand and engage with them. In brand homes, we're seeing a lot of different activities, different touch points with consumers. We're seeing the obvious, so tours, right? How do we make our products? We're seeing actually online events and classes, which is very popular during the pandemic, and we can talk about that a little bit more today. Classes in education, so this can be for the trade or for consumers. And then, of course, events, right? All of these are touch points, all of these are opportunities. All right, we're going to get into the data in a second, what we're finding, insights. But before that, we're going to have Min, who's on the call as well from our product marketing team, run a brief survey because I want to know how many types of experiences do you host currently, right? So do you have one tour? Do you have many different kinds of experiences? Please choose the answer for you. This will be really interesting to see, what we're seeing across the board. So we'll be getting data live, and this is awesome. We've got a couple more, we'll give it a few more seconds. It looks quite even across the board. This is really interesting. What we do find is generally smaller distilleries and breweries generally offer, one general tour. As you can diversify, you can charge more, you can offer VIP experiences and tailor different experiences to different kinds of consumers. Cool. I'm going to call it right there. I'm going to end. There you go. I'm sharing the results. This is awesome. It is pretty spread even across the board. Fewer companies have the 1, and a lot more are doing 3, 4, and 5. So that is one of the trends we're seeing out there, which is great. All right. Stop sharing. Cool. All right, jumping in. Before we get into actual some of the trends that we're seeing, a lot of companies come to us and say, what is the best way to approach our visitor center? What do we do? How do we do this better? The way that we think about it is, number 1, automate workflows. One thing that we'll probably talk about a little bit is everybody's having trouble hiring globally. It is a big issue right now in the workforce. So automate workflows. If people are still sending out manual emails and doing things manually, it's expensive, it's difficult, it's hard to scale. So automate the workflows through ticketing, through your booking solution. Number 2, collect data. Who are these consumers? If you don't know who these consumers are that are coming and spending an hour, 2 hours, maybe even a half a day with your brand, you're missing out, right? These are people that you can market to, you can get to become brand advocates. Number 3, measure the impact. Right? So how are these experiences actually impacting people's brand perception? Are they actually drinking more of your products because of it? So measuring that and then optimizing experiences. So ultimately ask yourselves and ask the rest of the team, why are we doing tours? Why are we doing tastings? If it is to drive brand advocacy, are we measuring it? Are we optimizing it? Are we optimizing for the audience that is actually arriving on site? Coincidentally, we work with brands on all 4 of these. All right, one more question and then we're jumping in. But what type of experiential data is most important for you in your brand home? So we've got demographics, revenue, capacity utilization, or purchase behavior. So how likely are they to purchase? Please answer this. It would be great to understand, everyone who's on the call, what is most important to you? Oh, wow, there is a big, so far there's a very big clear winner here. This is awesome. Give it a couple more seconds. So again, demographics, do you care about who these guests are, right? Do you care about revenue? Is it mostly about leveraging the ticket cost and making more money? Is it capacity utilization? Is it filling butts and seats, as we say? And getting better at allocating resources? Or is it purchase behavior, likely to purchase your products post-experience? All right, I'm going to call it there. Oops, show the results. There you go. Look at that. 78% of you on the call right now are saying that it is most important to measure purchase behavior, likelihood to purchase post-experience. We are seeing this. A lot of brands out there are investing in their brand homes, investing in these events, and they want to know that there is a long-term return on investment, that people are going out and actually becoming brand champions, that they're having an amazing time and buying more product. That makes a lot of sense. All right. Next. So we're going to jump in. Where does this data come from? Well, we have over 200 brand homes that are using AnyRoad to engage with consumers from 146 countries. It is mostly the US and the UK, so we're focused there. It is over 15 million unique experiential records. We're looking at behavioral and sentiment insights, right? So from different kinds of experiences, we're looking at net promoter surveys, which we can talk about later on in the call. We're looking at open text feedback that is analyzed via natural language processing. So trying to synthesize what's actually going on during these experiences. And we're looking at operational analytics. So guest volume, experience type, services, and bookings and revenue. All right, we're going to jump first off into the operational insights. This is something that you have to nail operations, right? If you can't get operations right, if you can't succeed in that realm, you won't succeed in everything else because your doors will be shut. All right, so a lot of this is interesting specifically because of the time period that we're in, right? Coming out of the pandemic. One of the big things that we're seeing are people are traveling further to brand homes, right? This is really interesting. So it's not just locals. We're actually getting folks that are traveling much further. We do believe this is from international travel has been tailored back. People are looking at, where can I go to explore, learn about new brands and experience. This is really interesting. A lot of brands are looking to actually tailor experiences to people from out of town. Smaller brands are looking at this kind of data to say, hey, where should we be expanding, right? If we're growing in our local community, where can we expand outside? If you have questions, again, please chat them in. This is really interesting. A lot of folks have asked us this question, so we looked across the data, which was, are people from out of town spending different amounts? So there's a couple of things on this. One is that, yes, they are actually spending more. People are traveling from further away and are spending more as an opportunity to sell add-ons, other merchandise, but also looking across time. A lot of our customers rely on our account management to understand, how much should we be charging? What is the industry charging on average? So this is an average across our partners for a normal ticket type, an adult ticket. But we are seeing that this is increasing, and this is actually increasing more than crazy inflation right now. It's increasing because the market, the demand is super high. If you look across the Kentucky Distillers Association and the Bourbon Trail right now, it is very hard to actually book a ticket because capacities are a little bit lower and demand is incredibly high. So this is really interesting. If you have not looked into increasing your prices, feel free to reach out. We're happy to chat with you, even if it's just offering some support. But it is a time when prices are going up. Somebody said, is this just for a sampling tour ticket? Yes, this is on average for a normal adult tour. That's correct. We wanted to remove the higher end VIP experiences because we see those going for everywhere from $50 to $500. All right. Brand homes must attract out-of-town visitors to increase revenue and NPS. This is, again, if that many people are traveling in from out of town, make sure you're advertising, make sure you're getting to those folks who might be in surrounding areas. And here's just a quick tip. You can tailor those ads on Facebook, things like that, to those markets where you're seeing people driving in from or even flying in from. All right, audience insights. Brand homes do create brand champions. Those metrics that you all said you care about, that people are actually going out and buying more of your product, that's huge. That's why a lot of brand homes exist. And also, if you're creating brand champions, it's even wider than that, right? They're going out and telling their friends about it. So we did analysis across different age ranges. So this is really interesting. 21 to 30-year-olds and 31 to 40 comprise the two groups that visit brand homes most frequently. This gets really interesting because not only is it skewing younger, but you want to make sure you're tailoring the experiences to that crowd. So if you look at this graph, on the right-hand side, you'll see that over 50% are in that age range, so under 40. However, on the left-hand side, their net promoter score, so it is a qualifier of how their experience was and is an indicator of how they're going to go out and tell their friends about it, is actually lower. Right? So there's an opportunity here to really tailor to a younger audience, right? Older audiences are enjoying it more, it's more impactful, but it's actually a smaller segment of the crew. So what does that mean? So we dig deeper on that, alliteration there, that 21 to 30-year-olds tend to care more about affordability and the value of the experience. Makes sense. They've got less capital to spend. But so two tips to attract this age group and make sure it's an impactful experience is, one, provide more entry-level experiences with standard drinks, some more casual atmosphere, something that, if you are a whiskey brand, maybe they're new to whiskey, right? How do they know which one to do? How do they learn a little bit more about it? And then leverage deals and bundle packages to get to that younger audience. Again, make it a steal for them to get their foot in the door. We do have some of our other bigger brands that are looking at those prices And again, really want to drive that long-term purchase behavior. So they do have, those $5 to $10 tours to get people in the door. They offer VIP experiences, higher end experiences, but those will attract the younger audience. And then for a little bit of an older group, they're going to care more about the history and how the drinks are made, right? And again, we're pulling this out of natural language processing on qualitative feedback. So experience surveys that flow through our system. So some tips for this, if you're trying to attract or want to focus on that 31 to 40-year-old cohort, provide training to your staff to deliver accurate information, right? This is a cohort of folks who are not going to buy it if there's BS that you've got in the script. 2, include more information about the history of the brand. Even new brands. We're seeing a lot of new brands out there that it's a modern history. It doesn't have to be the 2-year-old history, or if you're in Scotland, the multiple hundreds of years that you've got. It can be a new history. People want to know who's the founder, or how did this get started? There's a lot of new brands out there, and that modern day history can be very valuable. Things like the fermentation process, again, getting a little bit more in depth with a bit of an older, more sophisticated crowd. And then lastly, provide ample time for the audience to enjoy the drinks and ask questions, right? If they feel rushed, this is something that we saw, they are not viewing the brand as highly. They feel like they were rushed through it. It feels like a factory. We got Denise Field saying, we do amazingly with tourists and all demographics with Groupon. Absolutely. So that would be, again, offering a discount, getting people in the door. It would be really interesting, Denise, I don't know if you have data on this, but are folks on Groupon, are they converting into brand champions the same that others might be? Or are they looking for something to do? Are they walking away knowing more about your brand and becoming advocates? Awesome. AnyRoad insights. So this is really interesting. That older audience are more likely to also be repeat visitors, right? We see this across the board. The younger crowd, they're coming once. This might be the Groupon crowd, frankly. They want to do something on a Saturday. They want to learn about a brand, but they're not going to be repeat visitors. So if you're looking about repeat visitors, maybe creating another event or something to attract them, you really target that more sophisticated 31 to 40-year-olds who might have more disposable income. All right, getting into capacity utilization. This is core right now. When it's hard to hire staff, you don't want to have staff on hand that are taking 2 visitors, right? This is a forecasting that requires some art and science. So through AnyRoad, a lot of our partners do have live heat maps of capacity utilization, understanding which slots are filling out, which ones aren't. And they're able to shift resources around very easily. But we did pull out some highlights here. Fridays and Saturdays tend to be the most popular days, while Thursdays are the least popular days to attend an experience. This may be obvious, although a lot of brands out there have come to us saying, no, we believe that it all ramps up towards the end of the week. This was really interesting to see. So a lot of brands are actually closing for part of the day on Thursdays because they aren't seeing the capacity utilization that they had hoped. As the demand for in-person experiences is surpassing pre-COVID levels, you've got to get better and better to forecast capacity utilization, right? So again, whether you're working with us or you have access to the capacity utilization, one of the things we hear a lot is it takes time to crunch those numbers. Make sure that you're using a solution that has this live data, right? That week to week, you can understand capacity utilization, month to month, and seasonality. It's going to be super key to maneuvering around, making sure that you have the right staff and that you're staffing up and down when you need to. All right, I've got some tips and takeaways, and then we can get to some questions from everybody who's joining us today. So I talked about Net Promoter Score. I want to give a second about that. Net Promoter Score, for those of you who are not familiar, is a simple question. How likely are you to recommend our brand to a friend or colleague? This is an amazing question because it's not, hey, did you have a good experience, right? You can have an amazing experience and then never go drink this product. This is a question that we do wrap around in our experience surveys. 0 through 6 are detractors. That means they're actually going to go potentially speak negatively about your brand. If I have Daniel's Distillery and somebody says, oh yeah, Daniel's Distillery, 3 out of 10, that means probably they had a negative experience with it. They're going to go out and tell their best friend, yeah, stay away from Daniel's Distillery. 7s and 8s will be passive. Like, I don't think much of the brand. I don't, haven't, not positive or negative. And then 9s and 10s, that's the holy grail, right? Those are the people who are going to go out, tell their friends about it. They're going to talk about it on webinars. When they're at a bar, they're going to ask for it. So this is really interesting. And our methodology and what we would recommend, asking this before people arrive, right? If you are a brand like Four Roses, people know you, positive, negative, passive, but understanding who they are before they arrive and do they drink your products will allow you to segment your audiences and personalize your experiences. There's a huge trend right now of personalization. And in a second, I'll talk about Johnny Walker, but personalizing experiences is huge. So if you want to go out there and understand who's arriving, right? Are these bartenders? Are they people who love your cocktail or your spirits or your beers? Or are they people who maybe don't like them? We famously work with a very large brand that thought before we worked with them that everybody who went to their brewery loved their beer, because why would they not? Turns out when they started getting the data back, they realized that that wasn't actually accurate. They were getting a lot of people who were in town, wanted to visit the brewery. It's an iconic name. And we're able to tailor those experiences for different types of consumers. Brand conversion takes us a step further. So net promoter score would be generally, what do you think of our brand? Right? It's a great question to ask before. We also ask it generally after the experience. Brand conversion becomes the purpose of the experience, right? So this is the number of guests whose perception increases positively. So if I go to, Daniel's Distillery and I say, I'm an 8 after my experience. I go on a tour and I'm an 8. Okay, well, is that good or bad, right? It's technically passive. But if before I was a 10 and now I'm an 8, that's not great, right? You're potentially losing a brand advocate. Meaning, translating to what we were talking about earlier, maybe if I drink the product all the time, maybe I'm going to drink a little bit less because I'm going to go look at a competitor. Positive, though, would be maybe I was a 5 before going and now I'm an 8. That's an amazing, massive lift. So we use brand conversion as a metric across experiences, across our partners, to understand what is the lift that you are creating. Right? We can also do this with purchase behavior. So it seems like that was important to a lot of people, understanding how often people drink your products, and is that actually changing from the tour, from the tasting, from the event that you're running? Got another question. Are there any plans in the future to adjust this? My facility and many other Kentucky bourbon distilleries are seeing terrible net promoter scores despite receiving considerable great reviews. It seems the bad reviews outweigh the good reviews. So it's a great question, and we can talk about this more so. We're not just looking at net promoter scores, we're looking at qualitative content, right? So what's actually driving the positive or negative, right? It's not enough to say, hey, this is good or this is bad. The question is why. We do have that natural language processing. So it's AI that's parsing through it to understand what's happening. But it's really important to dive into that. Through AnyRoad, you can also message them, so you can ask questions, you can ask follow-up. Say, hey, we saw that you rated it a 3. Did something go wrong? You can identify issues as well, right? We've seen a lot of brands say, oh, they get these negative reviews and they dive into it in the content and realize that it was too loud or it's too hot or too much walking for an older crowd. So it's important to understand really why it is, and then make adjustments from there. Great question. I do want to ask another question, another poll for everybody on here. So what is your brand home's if you have a brand home, what is your brand home's biggest challenge currently? Is it staffing issues? Is it lack of consumer insights, operational inefficiencies, or the inability to capture consumer data? Answers are coming in. This is super interesting. We're hearing all of these. Yeah, somebody said, I would like to tick all 4 boxes. Yeah, this is a tough one, but I am curious. We are hearing all 4 of these issues, which is why we posted it all on here. And I think some of these are maybe short-term issues. Some are a little bit longer-term strategic issues for sure. Or if there are other issues, if you want to chat those in as well, we'd love to hear those. All right, give it another couple seconds if you've got any more. All right, I'm gonna call it. There you go. And let's share those results. This is interesting. So staffing issues are certainly there. It's pretty evenly split. Lack of consumer insights. So it sounds like people are getting some consumer insights, or it's not important for them. Operational inefficiencies might connect with staffing issues. And then inability to capture consumer data for the win. That is important. We're seeing a lot of brands out there that are trying to become more direct to consumer. How do you build your brand? How do you build that? It's no longer enough to just say, we had 50,000 people come through here. We want to know who they are. We want to know if they like our products. We want to know if they drink our products. And that's absolutely right. All right, some key takeaways, and then we can wrap and we can have some other questions and more of a dialogue. Number one, deep dive into guest feedback. So to Landon's point, to understand what's working and what's not, right? We want to understand what's actually driving those positive or negative net promoter score or those reviews. One of the things too is that a lot of brands are utilizing AnyRoad to get the reviews before they go out to social media, right? Because if you've got a negative review on TripAdvisor, that can really hurt you. But if you get it ahead of time and you can capture it and reach out to them and invite them back and actually turn that around. Number two, offer personalized add-ons to increase guest net promoter score and revenue per visit. We have a lot of brands out there who are offering merchandise. This can be keychains, this can be personalized bottles. Whether you're doing this through us or through other systems, set that up. They're pulling out their credit card to book a tour or a visit. You can set that on, and we actually have some really interesting data that those are converting at about 14%. So 14% of all people who are booking are actually buying add-ons, and it actually increases net promoter score, right? People leave, they have that love for the brand, and it's great. Speaking of personalization, I did want to bring up this example of Johnny Walker. So Johnny Walker Princess Street in Edinburgh has launched, and they're using people's flavor preferences to actually personalize the experience. Personalization is a huge, huge theme that we're hearing across the board. And what they're doing there is they're asking some questions on another system and pulling that data into AnyRoad so that when you arrive, right, if Min and I were to go to Edinburgh and to go to the experience, we would have two very different experiences based on what kind of flavors we like. And lastly, ensure you're ready for the busy season. We know it's all around the corner. I think we're all trying to pick up the pieces and figure this out together. We want to host some forums where great minds can get together. We can share problems and issues that we're facing. But this is all new territory. A lot of us have new staff. A lot of us are thinking about what does post-pandemic world looks like. And so we would love to support you on it. All right, let's get to some questions. I'm going to go back to this slide real quick so you actually have my personal email. And there's a couple questions that people submitted ahead of time. But if you do have other questions, please chat them in. We would love to hear from you or anything relevant to the conversation. All right. Yeah, this is a great question. What were the specific drivers behind Fridays having the lowest net promoter scores and Tuesdays having the highest net promoter score? This is really interesting. When we dug into the qualitative data, we saw that Friday's net promoter score was going down because experiences were too crowded. This is really interesting, and it is a common gripe that a lot of folks were feeling that venues were getting crowded, they weren't getting the personal attention, which actually drove net promoter scores down. Great question. How does brand conversion differ from net promoter score, and why is it so important? We covered this a little bit, but just to reiterate, net promoter score is a moment in time where brand conversion will look at the impact of the experience you've created, right? So if you're looking at brand conversion for different demographics, right? A younger crowd, what's working that we're creating? We have a lot of brands that look at brand conversion for tours versus tastings versus events, right? What should we do more of? That's where you're going to get those kind of answers. All right, we got another question coming in. Should my brand forgo virtual experiences completely? It's a great question. we saw an uptick, of course, during the pandemic of virtual experiences. The ones that were converting the best were the ones that were engaging. They were bartending classes. I would say what worked the least and was least effective were virtual tours, right? People didn't, they could look at photos online. So I would use virtual experiences, and we always say at the top of the funnel, right? If you're based in Kentucky, not everyone can get to Kentucky. But if you throw or host an experience virtually, and we do see this hybrid model continuing into the future, think about it as the top of the funnel, getting people into the door, right? So learning the basics, maybe a whiskey 101 class, or understanding the history of bourbon, something that they might not even get at the distillery. Great question. I got another one from Kevin and Chris. What is the most current best practices material available? Examples for tours, tastings, etc. This is great. We are putting out, we actually have a brand homes report that we're putting out that we can make sure that we share with everybody in the follow-up to this webinar. We're more than happy to actually get on a call. Our team works with the vast majority of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail in Kentucky. We work with brands all over the world. So more than happy to offer some insights, or if you're just getting started with your tours and tastings, happy to consult, tell you what's working and such. Got another question. Our distillery currently cannot offer tours. What are the best experiences to offer our guests? We currently do events like cocktail classes and flights during regular hours. We want to start offering private tasting flight experiences, but I'm new to this and have never coordinated it before. Where do you recommend me start? Any resources? Great question, Caitlin. Yeah, this is really interesting. Tours are one form of engagement. Interestingly enough, when you look across experiential touchpoints, one of the most engaging and impactful are education, right? So cocktail classes, flights, anything where people are learning, they're more likely to remember that, right? This is the same reason we remember our childhood teachers. Somebody here said we do private educational tastings. That's awesome. And Caitlin, what I recommend is starting to test and iterate, right? Try something out, try a few different things. Try a couple different themes, maybe a couple different kinds of cocktail classes. Look at the data, see what's working. It's a great way to get people engaged. This also can be community things that maybe have nothing to do with your spirits in general, but you becoming the hub of the community is a phenomenal way to engage, get people into the distillery and familiar with the brand. Great questions. Any other questions? Anything that is going on at your brand home or your distillery, or things that are working? We got Kevin and Chris again. Who are the most interesting travel companies that are integrating with breweries and distilleries to package trip opportunities? It's a great question. What we're seeing across the board are the local tour operators, right? I don't know if that answers the question, Kevin and Chris, but local tour operators, becoming close with them. If you look in Kentucky, there's like Mint Julep tours, there's many others. They're the ones who are bringing a lot of people over, right? They're great to build those relationships with, network with, and make sure that you've got a steady stream. One thing that we do note is that if you're looking at tourism and the travel side, Caitlin, you got another question? Chat it in. I would love to hear it. If you're looking at the tourism and travel side, we do work with a lot of brands that work with, we work with brands in the Caribbean that actually have ships coming of visitors, cruise ships. The one thing you want to remember is that cruise ships of visitors who are showing up to maybe your rum distillery or something similar, they're not always going to be the ones who are going to go out and buy your products, right? You do want to make sure that you're attracting the right crew of people, understanding what is the demographic of people, how do you engage with them. Not to say that travelers and tourists can't become brand champions, but you want to make sure that you're understanding that dynamic and how do you really educate them, right? We've all seen a lot of travelers and tourists come, they feel like, oh, this is neat, get a free tasting and move on. So how do you make sure that you stay relevant for them? Caitlin, if you've got another question, feel free to chat it in. Here you go. Might be a bit complicated, but we were recently acquired by a portfolio brand and we are having issues with our staff adjusting to the changes. We're previously operated as a primarily classic cocktail bar, but we're having a hard time adjusting our culture to gear towards emphasizing that we are a tasting room. We have 2 tasting room locations. In our downtown one, people usually have no idea that we're a tasting room. What are your best recs to shift this narrative and get staff on board? That's a great question. One of the things is, I don't know if you have book ahead times. People can book their visit. That is going to be key. If you are building out your email list, making sure that people can say, hey, I want to come, I'm going to book my tasting, I'm going to book my experience. That will shift it from just that cocktail bar of people showing up. A lot of brands out there are utilizing QR codes as well. So maybe as people arrive, there is a sign with a QR code that says, hey, we're offering new tastings, book it on your phone while you're here. But shifting that mindset from just show up, have a cocktail to, hey, this is either a book ahead experience or it's something you've got to reserve your spot. That'll help shift that mindset. And what's more is then the staff will get on board because they'll know who's coming. They'll know that this is in high demand, and that way they're not trying to shove a round peg into a square hole. I did see somebody raise their hand. If you are able to actually just chat it in, that would be helpful. Nope. This is great. Please, Caitlin, Kevin, Chris, John, all of you who are participating in this conversation, shoot me an email. My email's up here. I would love to chat with you in person. Maybe we can find some time to do a smaller session, strategy session together. For us, we see it as a rising tide lifts all ships. As brand homes succeed, as the pandemic subsides, I think we all win here. And so we definitely want to have knowledge sharing and make sure that people who are doing this and succeeding are sharing that knowledge with people who are maybe just getting up and running. Cool. Thank you all. Thank you, Landon, as well. Thank you to all of you who joined today. This is wonderful. We will do more of these. We also will follow up with the ebook that we've created. We've got some other content coming up that we'd love to share with you about best practices, how to get brand homes started, and of course, reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.